The beautiful little country of Palestine covers an area of 11,000 square miles. The geographic conditions, soil quality and climate are quite varied. Coastal plains alternate with mountainous regions, desert areas with the fertile, water-rich fields of the Jordan Valley. The Palestinian farmers utilized relatively advanced techniques to get water from artesian wells. They also relied on nature in many cases and used the simplest of methods. Was plagued by famines, forced labor, feudal service, and a host of taxes and repressive laws and decrees. The British Foreign Minister formulated the so-called Balfour Declaration in a letter to Lord Rothschild, an influential advocate of Zionism. His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine.
One point is worth some attention. In attempting to guarantee her regional interests and to support Zionism with the Balfour Declaration, Britain also hoped to push back French imperialism and had decided in the Sykes-Picot Agreement that Palestine was to become international territory. This makes it clear that this was an imperialist war, and that the basis for British rule in Palestine and for Zionist colonization had already been established.
The British troops had barely occupied Jerusalem and established themselves in Palestine when the British government sent in a Zionist commission headed by Chaim Weizmann, who became president of the World Zionist Organization immediately after the Balfour Declaration. The meeting between Weizmann and General Allenby was to coordinate the activities of the British military administration and the World Zionist Organization, so as to implement the Balfour Declaration and set up a national home for the Jews in Palestine. The Zionist Herbert Samuel was chosen as British High Commissioner in Palestine. Indeed, he was installed about 2 years before the date on which the League of Nations was scheduled to decide on the British mandate over Palestine. When he arrived in August 1920, he immediately took all measures to permit a wave of Jewish immigration. The ships with the immigrants arrived in the port of Jaffa. Within 1 month of his arrival in Palestine, he had permitted the entry of 16,500 Jews, which amounted to approximately 1/3 of all Jews then living in the country. The newly arrived immigrants began to set up new agricultural settlements and to extend colonization.
There was a great revolution, the so-called Burak Revolution. This caused the British Labour government to send a parliamentary commission of inquiry to Palestine to listen to the claims of Arabs and Jews. The commission decided that the Arabs were justified in their grievances and that their demands were just, since their country, their homeland, as well as their rights, were endangered. It called for an end to immigration and to the land purchases, and for a form of self-administration for the Arabs. The British government confirmed these recommendations and issued a white book. The Jews protested loudly against it and provoked such tumults among the Jewish population in Europe that after 7 days the British found it necessary to repudiate their white book.
This is the Kedumim here. Originally was known as Alon Moreh. We were the original group that settled here. They were organized before the Yom Kippur War, the 1973 war. This group of 23 families started out from Kiryat Arba, which is at Hebron, and decided that they have to come here and settle Samaria in the city of Shechem or Nablus. Our problem is land. We don't have enough land. This whole community of about 600 people or more lives on 50 acres of land. That includes our homes, our schools, our academy, the factories, everything. Now we simply don't have an extra inch of land to build our homes and to expand and to bring more people in. There are thousands of people who want to come and live here, want to settle here. It's beautiful. You see, this land is empty. There's room
to expand? So you want to expand, to grow?
Of course we want to expand. We have to, we must, in order to keep Israel safe. We must bring hundreds of thousands of Jews to come here and live here and build their homes here. There's plenty of space here. You can see this is an empty country. It's an empty country. And we're not displacing anybody here. People talk of our displacing Arabs. It's a lie. You know, the bigger the lie, the easier it is for people to believe. You know that in Germany, of course. We know it throughout the world, unfortunately. And this is another time that the big lie is being spread, that we are taking land away from the Arabs. It's a lie, I repeat it. Not a single Arab is being displaced. There are millions of acres here, empty, waiting for people to come and rebuild and revive it and make gardens and build beautiful homes and cities here. And that's why we are here. And in doing so, we will safeguard the future of Israel.
هذه الأرض اللي إحنا بنزرعها هون وأخذوا أرضنا بنوا فيها هناك في مستعمرة مجد العوز. مستعمرة مجد العوز بنوا فيها لليهود، اغتصبوها منا اغتصاب. وهذه الأرض اللي إحنا بنعتاش منها أبقوا لنا قسم بسيط، والقسم الأكبر هم أخذوه واستوطنوا فيه.
شو اللي بتزرعوه؟
بنزرع فيها عنب، بنزرع فيها تفاح، وبنزرع فيها كمان حبوب مزروعات. فاليهود حرمونا من هذه المنطقة طبعا الخصبة، أبقوا لنا الجزء البسيط وأخذوا الجزء الكبير من أراضينا. فإذا استمروا على هذا الحال وهذا التوسع في الشيك، معناها رايحين إحنا في فترة معينة نفقد كل هذه المنطقة ونصبح لاجئين.
يعني بتعني انه الارض عمالها اللي باخذوها عمالها تتوسع؟
الارض اللي باخذوها بوسعوا فيها شويه شويه الشيك، بنقلوا الشيك شويه شويه.
الشيك يعني
السياج اللي حوالين الارض بيوسعوا فيه شويه شويه، ولدرجه ان احيانا كل اسبوع بيعملوا توسيع على اراضي مزروعه، وبيجوا بالجرافات بيقيموا الشجر وبيقيموا العنب وما بيخلوش اي اثار للارض.
At the end of the 1920s, there was an important change in the development of the Zionist plans. The amount of immigrants increased once again, and Jewish land ownership also increased. The areas chosen for colonial settlements corresponded to a strategic plan. Two things were characteristic for these settlements. They were enclosed within barbed wire fences, and a watchtower was erected in the middle of the settlement. This made them military camps. Between 1932 and 1936, Jewish immigrants brought approximately 31 million Palestinian pounds into Palestine, which was a fabulously large sum at the time. This enabled them to establish a strong economic base for industry and agriculture, and thus create the social foundations of Zionism in Palestine. According to the estimates of Herbert Samuel, Jewish immigrants spent $370 million on land purchases and on industrial or agricultural projects between 1920 and 1937. 180,000 Jews immigrated into Palestine between 1930 and 1935. The growing number of experts from Nazi Germany and other countries and the increased financial investments accelerated the growth of the settlements. At the same time, large numbers of workers arrived in Palestine and began to use modern methods in agricultural, industrial, and military production.
Sheikh Es-Eddin al-Qassam's movement was completely political in nature, and his organization was a secret military organization. He pursued no individual or personal goals, but only purely political aims. Unfortunately, he was unable to complete his mission in Palestine, for he fell at the very beginning of his struggle. However, his comrades pledged to carry on the movement he had begun. Several months later, there was a Jewish attack against Arab seamen, and a strike broke out in Jaffa. Soon there were solidarity strikes in other Arab countries. The strike, it was declared, would last until the immigration and the sale of land ended, and until the Palestinians had attained their own independent state. The strike of 1936 lasted for 6 months. It was a unique event. All work in Palestine was suspended.
واستمر الإضراب 6 أشهر وكان حدثا فريدا في العالم حيث توقف كل شيء في فلسطين.
The Arab population of Palestine was united in its struggle against the British Mandate and the Zionist movement. One battle in this struggle was the famous 6-month-long strike of 1936, which also involved armed conflict. It was more than a strike. It was a revolutionary upheaval, which spread through all the mountains, valleys, and plains of Palestine.
Statistics published by the Mandate authorities on the events of 1938 indicate that the rebels carried out 2,945 military operations against the British Army and police, and also against means of transportation, railroad lines, government buildings, the pipelines of the Iraq Petroleum Company, IPC, and against the Zionist military forces and their settlements.
The day of the ground.
What is that?
It's very hard to translate it into English. Singular.
What did he say?
He said in Arabic what I wanted to say to you in English. I don't know how to say it in English. It's very hard. Where are you from?
Germany.
Germany. West Germany. So you know that you don't allow to take pictures from soldiers, the cars of the army?
Yeah.
Till 1:30 you cannot go also in. It's a cave.
Earth Day.
Yeah?
Earth Day.
Earth Day.
Earth Day.
Earth?
After the murder of Lewis Andrews, the British government increased its reprisals.
The biggest military campaign seen in Palestine since World War I was aimed at crushing the revolution of 1936. All the modern weapons known at that time were employed: airplanes, tanks, artillery, as well as a large number of troops. The operations were led by General Deal, who had formerly been Commander-in-Chief of the British Army. Britain took all possible military measures in order to crush the people of Palestine, to suppress their revolutionary spirit, and to destroy both the revolution and its patriotic forces. And all this was in support of the Zionist movement.
Britain intensified the military operations aimed at crushing the revolution, using modern tanks, planes, and other weapons, and calling for reinforcements from Egypt and Britain. In 1939, the British troops were able to suppress completely the entire upheaval.
Britain first saw to it that the formation of a Jewish state, with the Jewish agency as government and the Haganah as army, was assured. Only then did she withdraw from Palestine, declaring the dissolution of the mandate and transferring the country to the United Nations. The Arab forces and their leadership had been defeated, so that immediately after the British withdrew, the creation of a Jewish state became possible.
On May the 14th, 1948, the British troops and authorities left Palestine, after the Mandate government had convinced itself that it had provided favorable conditions for the transformation of the Jewish national home into a sovereign state. On May the 15th, 1948, the Jewish National Council convened in the Museum Room in Tel Aviv, and the Zionist leader, David Ben-Gurion, proclaimed the founding of the State of Israel. The members of the council signed the document of independence, and on the same day, the new state was recognized by the USA. On April the 9th, Zionist terrorists belonging to the Etzel organization, the Stern Gang, carried out the terrible massacre at Deir Yassin. It had been planned by Menachem Begin in order to make the Arabs flee their homes. This bloodbath marked the beginning of the systematic expulsion of the Palestinian people from their homeland. The Haganah carried out other bloody raids in the south and in Galilee in order to complete the expulsion operation and purge Palestine of its Palestinian inhabitants. The preventative measures taken by Egypt in blocking the Gulf of Aqaba and the entry of Egyptian troops into the Sinai area served Israel as a pretext to unleash the June War of 1967. In the very first hours of the war, Israel succeeded in destroying the Egyptian Air Force. It had been preparing for this war for 10 years, as leading personalities in Israel later admitted. The USA had equipped Israel with the very latest weapons. Three Arab armies were defeated within 6 days. The Israeli troops occupied Sinai and took up positions along the Suez Canal. They also occupied the Golan Heights of Syria and the annexed 2 Palestinian areas, the West Jordan area and the Gaza Strip. In this atmosphere of drastic Arab defeat, the Palestinian Revolution began. It had actually been initiated on January the 1st, 1965, by the Fatah organization, as a revolutionary response by the people. This served to give the Palestine Liberation Organization a new and militant content. This new type of revolutionary struggle within the Arab region received the support of broad masses of the Palestinian and Arab people.
For 2,000 years, this land was neglected, full of swamps, rocks and sands, very poor land. For the last 34 years, since the creation of this state, we have received 1,800,000 Jews, and we are creating out of them one people. Today, Israel is again, as it's being called in the Bible, a land of milk and honey. This is a flourishing garden in the Middle East. This is our story, and I want you come from all the countries of the world, to come here and to be with us and to make this land the land of the Jewish people, of all the Jewish people.
I came here with a message of peace. I believe that we can live together with the Palestinians. I came here to the holiest place of the Jewish people in order to see what happens here and really to have the feelings.
كنا ننتظر طوال حياتنا لكي نجد لنا وطنا. هذه الأرض هي وطننا.
Thank you.